All right. We are live. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'm Sheila. I am in Panama. We have no power right now. So I'm on my phone. So if I run around funny, maybe the power came on and I had to plug my phone in. Anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll do some quick intros of everyone here today to chat for the core conversation. This is going to be weekly, every Wednesday. We're going to all join here, myself and Kat and Karen, and we're going to discuss anything and everything to do with the core and the conversations about all of these wonderful things. We've got a nice list going. However, that list will change. There's always a new topic, always new things sprouting. So, yes, I'm Sheila. I'm the owner and operator of Hudson's Hounds. I'm from Central Alberta, but I now live in Panama. We've been here almost a year. So I've been seeing all of my clients virtually for almost a year now, and it's been amazing. I've learned so much about how to, not only how to work online, but to how to help clients without being in their living room. And I'm finding it's been awesome. I feel a little bit safer for some of the dogs that don't really want me there. I'm finding the clients are a little more at ease because they can be very worried about their dogs when I'm there, especially if we're looking at reactivity towards humans. So the whole online thing has been fabulous. So I'm here now. I just finished Kat and I just finished our reactive dog program that just got released last week. And that alone has sprouted all kinds of interesting conversations between all of us. So we have lots more courses and webinars coming. So we'll have lots of great topics to discuss every week. So, Kat, you want to do a quick intro? So we'll have lots of
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm Kat. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. I'm brainchild, I guess, behind Thrive Learning System and the core, which you'll be hearing about today. All of these canine core conversations are going to be basically, you're just going to be stepping into the core of Thrive Learning System with us because so I've been working on the core for we're coming up now on 8 years. I keep saying 7 years, but that was last year. So we're coming up on 8 years now that I've been working away on the core. It was just last year, so around about this time of year where it actually started to go out in sort of like an earlier iteration to the public. And then in this last year, as Sheila and Karen will be able to attest, it's been undergoing pretty rapid transformation and evolution. So and so now today it's at the point where it's definitely not in its final form. A system is always growing, adapting, and evolving, as is the systems that we live in with our dogs and that sort of thing. But it's at a place where we're able to now start to really fluidly kind of converse in its language. And I think the best way, so as I've been learning in the last year about, okay, so I've got this framework, that's this living, breathing framework that I've created. And I've got, people now, trainers and clients that are using it, but how do I teach it? And how do I get more people engaging in its use when I'm presenting something that's so different than anything that's out there in our dog training and behavior community. And so this has just sort of happened organically, where I've started to learn that it's actually through engaging in conversations that are applying the core. Once we've sort of unlocked the core, which is what we're going to be doing today, then we're able to just start to step into it and be able to use it to start navigating all of these different complex conversations about behavior in general. So as Sheila said, we've posted a list of just sort of our starting topics, but we literally could go on forever here. There's no end to the topics. And then, like Sheila said, we've started up last week. We launched our Rover Reimagined Reactive Dog course. Karen and I are going to be launching a course right away. Stay tuned for more information about that. The best way to bring you guys into the conversation is for us to just do these conversations. So I'm really, really excited about these conversations. Please be sure to log in every Wednesday and feel free to hop in the comments and engage with us. We want to converse with you. We want to bring you into this conversation about behavior, which is, I think, at least for me anyways, this is a very exciting time in the evolution of Thrive Learning System and the core. And yeah, that's really it. The only other thing I would say about myself is that I do also own Impossible Possible in Calgary, Alberta, which is a behavior consulting company. Primarily right now, I'm just offering group programs and services here in Calgary. And all of those programs and services are actually applying the core as well in one capacity or another, whether you're aware of it or whether you're not. It just depends on which program you're enrolled in. So yeah, so that's really me in a nutshell. Karen.
Hello. So I'm Karen. I'm co-owner of a canine behavior center in Newmarket, Ontario called Unified Canine Behavior Center. So a little bit of background about me is I actually transitioned from a career in corporate world to working with dogs about 11 years ago. So before that, I was like a huge hobbyist, just consuming all the information I could about dogs and practicing with my own dogs and helping people that I knew with their dogs, and started doing it professionally about 11 years ago. And just like most people, I definitely learned the traditional way about dog training. And the way I met Kat a few years ago when my brother, who lives in Alberta, got one of my puppies and needed some help training the puppy to be a service dog. And so when I was out there, I helped interview his new trainer, which was Kat. So I met Kat.
How much fun was that interview?
It was amazing.
It was
Yeah.
awesome. We connected
so
right
cool.
away. It was
Of
really
course we did.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, so I felt really comfortable leaving that puppy.
She went all the way from, this is how much of a committed big sister Karen is that she flew because her brother had basically been conversing with me about what would this look like to take a puppy and train it as a service dog. And then he sort of several emails in, it was like, oh, by the way, my sister is a trainer. She would love to kind of like meet with you and stuff like that. And I was like, of course, if I was in a situation like that, I would absolutely want to make sure that my family member was getting the best possible trainer. And so we set up this meeting, and then her brother was like, yeah, so she'll be flying in from Ontario on such and such a date. So I remember I drove out, and then we met, and they sort of interviewed me. Yeah, and then I'll let you continue. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, so we definitely had very similar belief systems, value systems around dog training in general. So I felt very comfortable leaving this puppy and my brother in Kat's capable hands. It was really great. And then fast forward, of course, I really went my own personal career path, deviated from what I was doing, and took on a more behavioral focus. So really working on dog behavior became my passion, and I was seeking out like-minded individuals who could help further along my own learning journey. And Kat was going to be doing a podcast with somebody that I follow very religiously, Michael Shikashio, and I was like, "Oh, I know Kat." Right? Oh my gosh, I'm going to ask my brother if she'd be okay if I call her, and of course he did, and she of course said yes. So I called her, and I had not spoken to her since that one time in my brother's kitchen, right? But of course we hit it off right away, and Kat explained to me about the core and the Thrive learning system, and it resonated with me deeply. So I was hooked immediately. Immediately, I said, I want to learn more about this, and I want to learn more about everything that went into it and the background behind it. And because I see how this could definitely help to streamline my communications with clients and help streamline my own my own thinking about dog behavior, and so I'd be able to be more efficient and more effective at doing my job. So that's how I ended up here today.
So when I first saw the core, when Kat first introduced it to me, it was like 1,700 pages of just a whole bunch of words and squiggles. And that's how I remember it anyway. Probably not how it went, but that's how I remember it. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
being
Yeah. Yeah.
so overwhelmed. I was thinking, holy crap, like she's onto something here, but I don't understand any of it. So it certainly morphed itself now into like a very clear, easy to understand framework.
Yes,
And it's changed the way that we can work with dogs. Like it's
that's it.
insane
Exactly.
how different my mind works now when I'm trying to
Right?
problem solve.
Yes. Yeah, the other thing that I like about it is it not only gave me a framework that made me able to look at, assess, and to help dogs and their humans who may be struggling to survive in our human world, right? But it also, I got the rest of the trainers that work at my facility also have become familiar with it and have taken some of Kat's courses, and so now we have a common framework. Like, so it's a language for us. Like
Right.
if I say to one of my other trainers, this dog that you're going to see, I saw them last week and they have a really strong express issue. That's almost all I need to say. I don't need to say, I don't need to go on for an hour and try to explain what does that mean. They know what it means,
Yep.
right? So, so it just simplified it for us, and it creates less confusion and less misunderstanding, right? So
Mhm.
if I
Mhm.
say, it's an adapt issue, they'll be like, okay. They immediately start going in their head, what kind of strategies do they need to be looking at if I say it's an adapt issue, instead of me having to spend all this time trying to reiterate what I did with the client.
Right. And then outlining, okay, we're going to do this protocol. And if that doesn't work, we're going to do this protocol. And then
Yeah,
when we do get through that part, we're probably going to have another protocol.
that's right.
But we don't have to
Exactly.
do that with the core. We
No,
can identify the element and just start at an element. And we
that's
might
it.
be bouncing around a bit, but we can start
And the other
somewhere
piece
more appropriate.
the other piece they understand too, that we all understand, is the connections between everything. So, if it's like, we have an adapt issue, it's like, okay, well, that adapt issue could be the result of a grow issue, or, then we might need to go back there instead of starting an adapt. We may need to address the issues and grow first before we can look at adapt. So it really does help build that framework for everybody. So, and it's a lot simpler for them to understand where do they need to start and what do they need to look at, right, in a really nice efficient way, right, instead of, because there's so much, right, like there's so much with behavior, like there's so many, it's so complex, right, it's so
Well, it
complex.
doesn't make any sense to put complex behavior into a typical cookie cutter approach. Like it just looking back, it doesn't make any sense because
Nope.
like if we were just teaching some basic obedience skills, sure, this is how we
Yeah,
teach a sit, and this is how we do a lure and a shape, and this is how our clicker works, and that's great.
yeah,
But when you're looking at complex behavior, you cannot use those tools. It doesn't work. So
No.
it makes sense as to why a lot of us kind of bang our head against the wall, trying to work with complex behavior, because we're using a set of tools that don't apply.
That's right.
So the core really helps us, get literally to the heart of the problem.
Yeah. So before we go any further, perhaps Kat should explain what the core is.
Yes, let's talk about the core.
People know what we're talking about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, it's fine. And I mean, this is how this is not sort of a linear concept. Learn 5 rules and just follow these 5 rules to a better behaved dog or to better training. It lives outside of that. So I think that just the way that we're conversing about it, and it's just like, oh yeah, we should actually introduce it, is actually more true to what the system actually is. Because the reality is that we live in this ecosystem with our dogs, and we can't really separate out the different parts of that ecosystem. So we can't separate what happens with a dog's relationships inside the home, and then what happens out on walks when you're out walking your dog, and maybe the dog's pulling on leash or it's reacting to dogs or other people. We actually can't compartmentalize and divide those things out no more than we can in our own lives. We also can't sort of split out our dog's instincts, or we can't split out our guidance and caregiving of them and the choices that they make at the dog park. We can't separate who they are as an individual and their temperament and their personality and their health and their nutrition. We can't separate that out. We can't separate out their learning history and what they've learned or what skills they have from whether or not they're reacting out on the leash. We can't separate the way that we are thinking about dogs or thinking about dog behavior and our actions with our dogs, but then also ultimately our dogs' behaviors. And we can't separate out the growth and development of our dogs and the development of their central nervous system and their current and historical development. We also can't split that out as well. And so what Thrive Learning System does, and the core, so the core is kind of, as Sheila alluded to, it's the heart of Thrive Learning System, and it consists of these 8 elements, or what we call core elements. And these core elements are together simultaneously. They make up and all of the different facets of this ecosystem that we're living in, and that's happening. It's happening right now, and then it's happening now and now, and this is constantly shifting and evolving. And so these 8 core elements allow us to basically get a window into the different lenses or aspects of of this ecosystem. It places us inside the ecosystem versus outside of the ecosystem, kind of having a completely different conversation. We actually sort of embrace it, right? We're embracing the complexity and the nuance and stuff like that. And so these 8 core elements, I'll just sort of briefly go through each of them, and then I'll let Karen and Sheila kind of pipe in and maybe just take the conversation kind of wherever it goes. Or if there is anybody that's watching this live, if you've got a conversation, you can definitely join the conversation as well. We'd love to chat with you as well. But so the 8 elements, so we've got think, we've got lead, we've got connect, we've got grow, we've got adapt, we've got learn, we've got express, and then we've got, I've missed one. What have I missed?
I was counting as you were going.
Let's do it again. We have
Oh,
think,
no,
Again,
lead,
forgot no.
right? Think, lead, know, grow, express, adapt,
adapt,
right?
yeah,
Learn,
Learn and think.
learn and
right?
think.
I
Yeah,
said
we did
think, I
that.
said
Yeah, we
think
got it.
first.
Yeah.
I said think first. That's not it, right?
Oh,
Learn and wait. So we have no. Isn't that terrible? It's terrible. We can't say them off the top of our head. Hold on.
that's
Think,
it.
learn, grow, know, adapt, connect, express, and learn. There we go. That's 8,
There we go.
right?
We got it.
Yeah.
We did
Woo,
it.
woo.
Yeah. We did it. Yeah. That's why there's 3 of us, because we're taking advantage of the
Yeah,
collective mind, and the collective learning. Embracing each of our strengths and weaknesses to hopefully bring together somewhat of a cohesive conversation. But I mean, this being said, that's really what the core is about too. It's about reality. So there's these 8 elements. I'll just walk you through what each of them is, just in a nutshell. If I miss one of you guys will be able to sort it out. We'll
yeah,
talk to you at the end of our conversation today about how you could get a copy of these elements if you want something in writing, just to refer to, put on your fridge, check out on your phone, and just start
Amazing.
diving into the conversation with your
And
family.
and I have to add,
Yeah,
just I use the core every day, but I still keep a reference for myself above my laptop when I'm working through stuff. So everybody should have this. Just have that reference. And like, I don't know if you can see it, but I keep it taped to my wall
there
so
it
that
is.
I can open when I need to, because, well, why not? It just helps me think more.
It does.
Right.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll walk you through. I'm going to start with think. Think is a very important core element because it's all about the guardian's nature, principles, and values, and how that nature. So nature could be like your personality. Are you introverted? Are you extroverted, etc.? Your principles. What do you believe in? What do you bring to the table culturally, or maybe religiously, or politically, or things like that? And then also your values. What's most important to you? And the intersection of all of those things, and how do you think about and piece together information in general, but also when it comes to dogs and dogs' behavior? Do you try to kind of take a whole bunch of details and try to find a label for them? Or do you look at how it is that things are connected? What are the patterns that thread together different things? And how is that change in different contexts, and that sort of thing. So that's really the think element. It's the brain of Thrive Learning System, but it looks at how our thinking and our values and our beliefs are then influencing how it is that we're stepping into the moment and into the conversation with our dogs. And so it's deeply philosophical, but it's very, very appropriate. So that is the think element. Moving on to the know element. The know element is what allows the core to be personalized to each individual dog and guardian. So the know, we like to say, is kind of like the dog's social media profile. If they had a social media profile, you kind of want to get just like some basic information, but you don't necessarily want to like deep dive. You will find answers in each of the elements, but with the know, there's definitely limitations unto itself as to how deep the answers would be. But what it does is it sort of creates this filter that changes how we look at all of the other elements independently and simultaneously. So the know element, what we're really concerned with is who is the dog, like just like name and age and breed and gender, and are they neutered or spayed? What are they eating? Where are they eating? How many times a day are they eating? When was the last time they were at the vet? What is the home environment like? Do they live in a really busy urban environment, or do they live out on a farm? Who lives in the house? Is it just a single guardian like myself? Or is there a large family and then lots of people coming and going? What type of home is it? Are they living in a house or an apartment, townhouse, condo, that kind of thing? Because then we go, oh, well, they got to walk 7 flights of stairs just to get the dog to go out to toilet. So that changes then when we're looking at maybe solutions for particular behavior. It filters things there. We also want to look at the community. We want to kind of zoom out and look at what community do they live in? What is it like? What are the resources available in the community? I mean, it's wonderful for Sheila and I to recommend something to someone like, oh, just take your dog to a private off-leash park. These could be wonderful options. But what if you don't live anywhere near a private off-leash park, or you don't drive? Or there's some other sort of constraints. So know is really about knowing the dog and the family. The root word for know is to see. And so that's really what the know element is all about. From there, the lead element. So the lead element is a human element. So in other words, it looks at our role as guardians in the relationship with our dogs. So it looks at the guardian's provision of caregiving and guidance. And so what decisions am I making as a guardian? And how are those influencing behavior? Because in this domesticated relationship that we're in with our dogs, we're ultimately the ones that go to the store and buy the training tools and that buy the dog food, and we decide which training class to sign up for. We decide we have a large responsibility in the relationship, and so that's all encompassed by the lead element. And it's really important to keep in mind there's 2 sides to it. There's guidance, which means to provide direction, but then there's also caregiving, which speaks to meeting those social and emotional needs. And so if those aren't being fulfilled, then we're going to see problem behaviors. And so that's really the lead element in a nutshell. The connect element is about the dog's relationships, their social interactions, their communication, their attachments. And so there's a landmine of different things that we can observe and look at within the connect element. It's deeply observational, and it's a place where we have to really just grow at wherever we're at. We can start anywhere we're at. So even just me talking about this today and us conversing with this today might just spark some new ideas, and you can trust that this will work for you at every level. It's what's known as scalable, and it's fractal. So it means that it's true at every level of conversation, whether you're just starting out or you're an absolute expert. So I really encourage you to dive in. From there, we would look at the grow element. So the grow element is all about the dog's lifelong development and socialization. So we're concerned with things like what developmental stage is this dog at, but also were there any fractures or constraints in development that are now causing a disruption within the ecosystem. And so this is a really important element for us to look at for any type of problem behavior, whether it's aggression or just that your dog is jumping up on the counter. Grow can hold some really deep answers. From there, we look at the adapt element. So the adapt element is about the dog's coping mechanisms and their innate capacity to be able to adapt. And this is fundamental. This is like, how big is your dog's bucket? And are they resilient and robust? And this is key. The adapt element, if it doesn't really matter what else is going on in the ecosystem, if we've got an issue in the adapt element, it's the limiting factor. And stress or problems from all of the other elements, from think, from lead, from connect, from grow, from know, all flow into adapt. And so if that bucket's not big enough, it overflows, and then we get stress. But we're looking at stress from a much different perspective than we typically are in a more conventional sort of like EBA model, or behaviorism model, the more common or predominant models. So that's sort of everything that the adapt element has to offer. We've got the learn element. So the learn element really is dog training as we know it today. So we can't simply just leave behind everything that came before. We have to consider all of the current models as well. And so within this model, so if there's people watching that are trainers, this is where you're going to find your ABA or your behaviorology. This is where your operant conditioning and your classical conditioning is existing. We would also look at different cognitive models of learning within this element, along with social models of learning, such as learning through mimicry or like local enhancement. For those of you who are trainers, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're a dog guardian, you just need to know that the learn element encompasses all of the different ways that we know that dogs learn, and we know that this is just based on the biology of the dog. And so that's the learn element, but it also contains what it is that we're teaching dogs. So if we're teaching obedience, if we are using that clicker that Sheila talked about earlier, that's where it would fall, is in the learn element. So that stuff is super important to the conversation. It's just that there's more going on in the ecosystem. And so we need to look at the learn element in light of the rest of the information from the ecosystem. And then that's what's going to make the difference between the core and sort of everything that modern day dog training has to offer us, kind of regardless of where it is that you're coming from methodologically and philosophically as well. So from there, we move into our express element. So our express element is about the dog's innate behaviors and instincts, and their expression of their own personality. So things like words like agency would fall under the express element. But also this is where we would look at our dog's instincts. So in order to know what their instincts are, we would have to look at the know element and know, who are they? What breed or breeds are they? But then what instincts am I observing? Because just because you have a border collie doesn't mean that your border collie is going to display strong herding instincts. They might, but there's anomalies. They might not. So we have to look at those two things together. But the express element is really about them expressing who it is that they are. This is an area that Karen and I, in our course that's going to be launching really soon. I'm having a hard time keeping it in, but we've recorded it. It's basically getting. We've got some people that are basically reviewing it for us to make sure it's where we want it. But teaser is that this particular course is very strong in the express element, so it's a ton of fun to dive into the express element. And so that, unless I've forgotten an element, I don't believe I have, encompasses all 8 of our core elements. And again, it's just about diving in. So so Karen and Sheila, do you have anything to add to kind of my explanation of the core elements or anything that you think would be good to just share with people that are watching this?
Uh,
Um,
I, I do
yeah,
for
you go
sure.
ahead, Karen.
Yeah. One thing, if it wasn't obvious, I'm just to spell it out a little bit clearer. One of the things that I really like about using this framework is really does encompass all of the sciences and relating to the system of a dog, right? So for professionals who maybe perhaps are have a history in ABA or have a history in ethology or have used some other type of framework for learning or training or behavior, it doesn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. So it's not that what their previous learning history doesn't apply still. It does, right? It just takes it to another level. It just expands it so that you are encompassing other facets of the dog and their ecosystem and all their relationships and trying to pinpoint exactly, whereas a cat used to call it the kink in the hose. So in their behavior, right? So that's one of the things that I think I really like about it the best is that it doesn't just say, well, the what you did before was not right. It doesn't say that, right? It's saying, yes, what you did before is still useful, right? But here's some additional things to consider when you are looking at the behavior of a dog, right? So that you have a much clearer, broader picture of what is going on. So it's that zooming out phenomenon, right? So you can look high level at the whole system of the dog and then zoom in to the specific pinpointed area where the dog may be having a challenge. Does that make sense at all?
That's
I love
essentially what I was going to talk about as well. So you just said it probably much better than I was going to. Um, the part I love so much is about the zooming in and the zooming back out again and going,
Yeah.
whoa, okay, there's something else going on. Okay, let's zoom back in and then let's zoom back out. And until you can zoom in and out a couple times and you don't find anything new, then we know we're on the right track. So it's about, yeah, taking, especially for trainers that are watching this, it's not about taking what you've learned all these years and just dumping it. It's not about that at all. The core just
No.
takes it to another level of investigation. I know
Yeah.
that's what it did for me. It made me peel the onion in a whole different light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it doesn't
Exactly.
matter. It doesn't matter where you're starting from either, as well. So you don't need to have a background in ethology or behaviorism or ABA if you're a trainer. If you're coming from any of the different methodologies or philosophies, you can just dive into it, and it's going to start to, like Karen and Sheila have said, as we're zooming in and out, it just creates a different way of looking at things. But it also, when we do that, it also explains everything that we currently think about behavior. It meets us where we're at within that zoom. It's like, oh, that's how that fits into this bigger picture puzzle. But then sometimes while you're zooming out there, you're like, okay, so I can see how that fits in. But then you might go, wait a minute, I might have missed something. And so just to kind of give like a concrete example, maybe you're dealing with a dog. I'll just use a simple example that's pulling on the leash, right? And so
Yeah.
your go-to tools might involve, with some sort of leash training method, using whatever tools you might want to pull from out there. But as you start to zoom in and zoom out using these elements, you might start to realize that actually the issue is not actually living in learn. It's actually the dog is pulling on the leash because there's issues with adapt, or there's issues with lead, or there's issues with connect, or there's issues with grow. And so then as you do that, you go, okay, well, I could just use this tool that's been kind of like my go-to tried and tested method or methods for it. But wait a minute, what if it's not even about learn? Like I'm starting to notice these patterns as I'm zooming out and I'm going, wait a minute, I think that maybe my dog is actually looking to me for caregiving and I'm not meeting that need. And because of that, now they're aroused and they're pulling on the leash. So you know what? I'm just going to forget about my tools for a moment. I could come back to them later if I want, but I'm going to just like, dive into the lead element and I'm just going to fiddle around there. And the beautiful thing, and we talk about this a lot in the different courses, I talk about this in the Canine Complexity course, which is sort of like the trainer level course for this. We talk about this in like the smaller courses that I've done with Sheila and Karen. It's like the core has these automatic, these built-in bumpers or like GPS. So like, don't worry about it. If you just want to explore something different, if you're like, Kat, Karen, Sheila, I don't really want to change anything. Like you're sort of, this is awkward and uncomfortable, which it absolutely is. And just know we've all been there, and we're still there. This never changes. This is very disrupting to think about behavior this way sometimes. But just know that if you just decide that you want to look somewhere else beyond learn and beyond the tools that you're using and sort of put aside some of the ways that you're thinking in terms of philosophy and methodology, which falls into that think element, you just put that aside. And if you just try for a moment to look somewhere else, to zoom out, maybe dial into the lead element, fiddle there, I promise you that what will happen is that if you were wrong, first of all, you can just go back to your learn methods and you're fine. You might have to just dust yourself off a bit, and then off you go. But secondly, if you're wrong, but you still want to keep exploring, what you can do is you can just stop with the lead stuff, and then you can just dive into the connect element or the adapt element or the think element or the grow element. So it has built into it, because Thrive Learning System is first and foremost a system. It has a life of its own that goes beyond any of us and all of us here. And so you can just trust that built into the system is these bumpers. So if you just sort of stay connected to the ecosystem, what will happen is it will correct your course, and you'll just learn and grow, and it won't always look pretty, but you're going to find yourself in a much different place. So I hope that made sense. And Karen and
So
Sheila,
a couple of words that'll help. It gives people, this is really, especially the guardians who are listening, it gives people permission to be curious. You have permission to be curious. You can examine different aspects of your dog's life, and you can try different strategies that may not be the traditional strategy of, what you would learn in a traditional training class or something like that. But, if it's good for your animal's welfare, you're not going to break your dog by being curious. You can be curious and you can examine different elements of their life and see if there's something going on there and try strategies that would impact that part of their life. If there's nothing going on in that part of their life, nothing's going to happen. So the dog will still be okay, because you're not actually doing anything to damage the dog's welfare. You're actually approaching it from improving the dog's welfare. So you're not going to break your dog. Right. So
That's something that I've heard from many clients over the years is, I think I ruined my dog, or I did this and I think I broke my dog. And the
broke my
cool
dog.
thing
Yep.
about the core is you can't break your dog.
No. No,
You
that's
can
right.
bounce around. You have permission to make mistakes. You have permission to go back. Mistakes are actually what show us the stuff we might be missing. So
It gives us
go
information,
there,
right?
make mistakes. Yeah, make them.
Exactly. You get information from those mistakes. So it's just going to help
Mhm.
guide you, right,
Exactly.
onto the right path, right? Which we'll get to, I'm sure, in another conversation. We could talk about the ant trail later.
We will. We will. But we are reaching our 45-minute mark, and I know we wanted to keep it around that time so we don't keep you guys too long. So Any closing statements, Kat, about the core?
Sure. Yeah. So the only thing aside from just saying, well, first and foremost, thank you to you ladies for hopping on here and getting Canine Core conversations fired up. But secondly, I'm going to be, as I mentioned earlier, is I want to make sure that everybody can get in their hands sort of a copy of those core elements that Sheila kind of pointed her camera at there, so that you've got kind of a reference point. And I would just really encourage you guys to download that. So we'll make sure that the link, once it's up on the Canine Complexity Academy, we'll make sure the link is placed in the notes for this episode of Canine Core Conversations. And then you'll be able to go there. You'll just have to create an account, and then you're going to be able to just download that there. While you're there, you can feel free to kind of browse around. Again, Sheila and I just released our course. We've got a course launching super soon, Karen. And then if you want to check out kind of like what episodes are coming up in the Canine Core Conversations, if you just look at the infographic that's in the event on Facebook, you'll see sort of a list. So today again was unlocking the core. We wanted to just kind of introduce ourselves, tell you a little bit about what is the core, but then going forward, we're going to be diving in. I can't remember what we've decided for next week, but you can rest assured it'll be one of those topics from that list. And what will happen is in those conversations are going to be more focused, where we'll take one of those conversation topics, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the core to bounce around and to illuminate more about those different topics. So we've got a range of different things coming up, from talking about things like fetch to talking about what happens when relationships break down and we're having relationship problems, or we're going to talk about philosophy. We're going to really tackle a lot of the conversations and topics that we think are really important to have conversations about. And certainly, if you're watching this and you're like, ooh, I would love to hear you ladies talk about whatever, leave us a comment and we'll absolutely take it into consideration. You know, we want you to join these conversations. Yeah, and so that's really about it. We'll make sure that there's a link for the Canine Complexity Academy, which is where we're all sort of commonly connected. We'll make sure you get the link to download the core elements. And then, yeah, otherwise, I don't have much else to say. Sheila and Karen, do you have anything to add before we kind of sign off here?
No, just thank everybody. Thank you everyone for watching and joining us. And
Thanks, everyone.
yeah, get ready for every Wednesday. We'll have a good time every Wednesday.
Ladies, I'm super excited to continue these conversations with everyone. So thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.